Okay, so I've got my wet area detail starting to come together, but now I want to add some notes. And so before I try that, I probably should open up my file that has the notes in it, which was way back in the week 1 folder, the Viewport catalogue. And then it was, from memory, in the beginning of the wet area lining system section there. It was one of the first details there. I think it was detail 2 or 3. And I know, so it was on the next page. Well, even this is pretty close. That's going to give me enough for the notes actually, so I'll just put that to one side. And then back in AutoCAD, just put this over. And so I'm going to start setting up my sizes for my leader. So in the annotation panel, you'll see in the section to the left of each of your drop downs, make sure by this stage that you do know what all those drop downs do, that you've got one for text, one for dimensions, and then the next one is for leaders or multi-leaders. And there is no difference. I don't think leaders actually exist anymore in AutoCAD. They used to have these things called leaders, and then multi-leaders was the new thing, but as far as I know now, they're all just the same thing. So if you see leader or multi-leader, it's the same. So over here on the left, it'll say multi-leader style, but again, it's all just leaders. So a leader is the arrow, or the arrowhead and the line with the text combined. And so I'm going to click on the button there next to my leader style name, which is standard. And that, of course, is going to open up the multi-leader style manager. In other words, the thing I used to make leader styles. And so there, you should have one called annotative. Because we've been working with an annotative workflow, you can use that as a starting point. So then I'm going to click modify, and then just change this one. I'm not going to make a new leader style. So I'm going to change on the first tab there in the leader format the arrows, and this is personal preference. You can choose whichever arrow you like the look of. And so I'm going to go for one of the simplest, the right angle there. Now unfortunately you won't see it in the preview just because of the way the scaling works with the preview, but that's okay. It still will work if you choose it here and let the size stay at 4 mil. So then going to leader structure there, then you can change the maximum number of points if you like. I'm going to take that down to, so I'll leave it on 2 as the maximum. As long as I know that 2 is the maximum, I'll probably just use 1 point most of the time anyway, but I'll show you what that does in a moment. And then, again, check that the scale is on annotative, and I'll leave that as it is otherwise. And now the most important thing is we go to content and get the text size set. So I'm going to click on the button next to the text style name. You can see there's a browse button. So it'll probably be on standard, and if you click on the button next to that to browse and choose a new text style. So I'm going to click the new button, and then I'll call it, let's just give it a new name for the leaders, leader note or text. Leader note, that'll do. And then I'm going to, in the fonts, choose Roman S. So a nice simple font. And then I'm going to leave everything else. So I'm going to leave annotative turned off. I don't think it needs that, but honestly I'll be checking that in a moment. But annotative I'll leave turned off, and then the height I'm going to leave at 0. That's really important. Do not put a height in here. Okay, so now I can just close this, and it'll ask me to save changes. I'll say yes. And then in the list of text styles, I can choose leader node. And then the height here, I'm going to change to 2. So there we are. And everything else I can leave. So I'm going to click OK now. And then make sure that annotative here is selected, and then choose Set Current, and then Close. So now I'm just going to check my layer. I'm on the ANO layer, so that's fine. And then I'm going to go and make a leader, again from the annotative panel. And so I'm going to click a start point on the dashed line there. Now I want it to touch that dashed line and not something else. So to force it to snap to that line, I'm going to type NEA, enter, and that will snap to the nearest point that I pick on that line. So now I'll just bring this across until I can see the arrow. So you can see there that my arrowhead isn't coming up when I'm too close, but if I come out far enough for the arrowhead to fit in, then I should see it. So I've clicked, and now I can type the flashing, so vertical corner flashing. It's I suppose angle flashing, so we'll call it that. So vertical corner angle flashing. Notice I'm not worrying about pressing enter to move on to the next line. There you go, if I can spell. So I could press enter there, that would take me down to the next line, but I don't have to do that, so I'm just going to press backspace to go back to the previous line. And to finish, I'm just going to click to one side. So that's now done. But I can select that afterwards, and if I want to change the size of that text box, you can double click on the text there, and then you'll see you get the option to just stretch that if you want to change that text box size, and it'll automatically wrap down to the next line. Okay, so then you can see that my arrowhead, well, it's visible, but maybe that is not really the best for this sort of detail, so maybe I'll go back and adjust that now back to my multi-leader style, and again I'll just click modify now and go to the leader format. So maybe right angle here isn't going to work that well, so I'll try the open 30 instead, and I'll maybe make the size a little bit less, maybe 3. So that's maybe a bit clearer for this detail. So that's on the model tab, but you can see that I've got the scale there set to 1 to 5. So if I go onto a sheet now where I have that detail, and I do have it on one of them, I thought, okay, no I don't, maybe so I'll just put it onto this one. So I'm going to make a new viewport from the layout tab. With the, if you missed that, just make it a bit clearer. So here on the layout tab, you can just go to the rectangular button to make a new viewport. My points to make the view, and double click inside the viewport to make it active, and then zoom in on my little detail. And now I'll set the scale to 1 to 5, and you can see there that the text is the right size. outside the viewport to deactivate the view. And so then, so I'm just going to double click actually to go back into that viewport and show you a little trick. If I type RE, enter, that should fix my my line types. But, oh no, so they are right. So you can see there my dash line is showing with the correct spacing for the dash parts. So that's right. And so now all I wanted to show you is that I can draw text in paper space. So I've double clicked onto the page to go back to paper space, and you can see that down here. And if I go back to the annotate panel and go to make a new leader, so we'll do one that maybe should go outside, maybe the note for the aqua check, which is this layer here. I want that to go over to the left, and so I might actually just move these things across a little bit, so I've got some room. Okay, so again, with the leader, so I want this note to go, or to start about here. Now the problem is it's going to try and snap firstly to some of the things I've drawn. So another good option here is just to turn object snap off if it's getting in the way. You don't need to place arrowheads all that accurately, so you don't need to snap. And you can then just click on any point and it will just start from there. Now I can click over to the left and have it going outside my viewport. Okay, so Gyproc AquaCheck is the node. Okay, so I can easily adjust that now, same as before. But the important thing there is that it's going outside the viewport. So can you see why then there are some notes that work well inside the view, and it's often good if you can do a lot of them like that, because then if you need to have the same notes on another drawing, it's easy to copy them from one to another. When they're on the sheet, it's a little bit harder because to copy the viewport and the objects together, well, it works, but it doesn't always give you what you want, because then you'll need to adjust the viewport. And if that doesn't make sense to you, then just try it and you'll see what I mean. But again, you'll see before long that you will sometimes need to do notes in model space, like I did the first one. And here you can see I can't select this second one because that was done in paper space, and again there'll be times when you need to do notes that way on the page or in, again, paper space. So I'll give you another example of that. Here I've got the bathroom plan, and now because I'm in paper space, I can do notes using leaders. I'll just do one over here. Okay, so I can have that note there that goes outside the viewport, and I don't have to worry about the scale. Now, if I go back to model space on using the tab called model, so we're fully in model space here, what's going to happen if I go to draw a leader now on this plan of the bathroom? Well, I'll show you. So I'm going to draw a leader, maybe showing the same note. Okay, so I'm just going to say ceramic tile. Doesn't really matter where I put it. You'll see the problem. Okay, let's do it again. Okay, so I'm just starting here, putting it to one side. Okay, it looks okay, but when it's finished, you can see again, it's not working. So what's the problem there? If your text or your notes seem way too big or way too small, what's the issue? Scale, exactly. Okay, so I haven't told AutoCAD what scale I want these notes to be for. I've just left it down here on 1 to 5. So your bathroom plan needs to be 1 to 20. So you could choose 1 to 20 here first, and now if I draw a leader, just the same as before. What do you know? It's the right size. Now, the other way would be to draw it here. Okay, so I'll just improve this too. So you can see there, it's got the note that I drew on the page is the same size now as the note I drew back on the model tab, this one. Because I chose 1 to 20. So I told it it's from 1 to 20, so then it comes up the right size in that 1 to 20 viewport. Notice that you can't see the little one. This little one here, that was done when this was still set to 1 to 5. No, it's exactly the same size. So here, right, so they're the same size. That's right, the same size. So if I had another viewport, and maybe I'll make one. Okay, so I'll just do another viewport over to the side. So this is the area where I had that tiny text there. So if I set this now to 1 to 5, I'll see that text. So it's a filter. When you choose the scale in your viewport, if you choose the scale, that doesn't just set the size, it also turns on the text that you've done for that scale as well. It's actually a really clever system, but it's one of those things that you won't realise is actually helping you until you've used it a few times. So then the last thing I wanted to show you there is if I go back now, I'll set this to 1 to 50. And so then I'll do some notes for 1 to 50. And so a good note might be, again, the floor finish. So you might have a note here that shows that it's new timber flooring throughout. And we specified the actual floor material later, but at least we've told the contractors that it's all new. Oops. I'll just stretch that a little bit more. That might. Yep, that's probably the best. Actually, maybe. There we are. Okay, so I've got my note, and then on my floor plan, I can't see it because this is 1 to 100. So I need a 1 to 50 floor plan. You can see there in my 1 to 50 floor plan, I can see it. So now I'm going to go to the viewports that I was showing you earlier, and we know this bathroom floor plan is 1 to 20. So I'll go and make another leader here, and so, well, we don't really need many more notes here, but maybe we'll just put something about bath. So the really messy notes, you wouldn't normally do them this badly, but just so it's got something. So new wall hung bath. Okay, so can you see there that the text is the right size? Back to model, it's on 1 to 50. But all I wanted to show you there is that if you draw text in a viewport, it uses the scale from the viewport, not the scale that you've set back in the model tab. So it can be easier sometimes just doing the annotation inside the viewport. and then you won't need to change the scale each time because the scale's already set in the viewport. And again, that's something that'll be clearer once you've done some of the notes. But again, these things should be pretty straightforward as long as you've set the styles up and got some scales of different or different views that are set to different scales ready to go, so that you can try the notes with at least more than one scale, or at least two different scales. So that's going to give you a lot of the annotation, but then also you're going to need to do some referencing using standard symbols. So the document that I gave you earlier should have most of these. So make sure you know where this file is, and it's actually really good for all these abbreviations as well. And I forget half of them myself, and I've been doing this for years. So that alone is a good thing, but then coming over here you can see all the standard referencing symbols. And so I thought I'd just show you, again back in AutoCAD, how to draw those. You shouldn't be relying on blocks that other people have made. Apart from anything else, the blocks are often going to be wrong, but also the way that they look and the size and everything else is something that you should be able to determine, and also if you can make them yourself, then it's much easier to adjust them. So they're very easy things to draw, just using a circle and some lines. So that's what I was going to show you, and that's, you can see that we've got there. So the, symbol maybe I'll do over here. So the section markers I've got there need to be replaced by this more correct symbol, I suppose. So the measurement that you need to remember for the radius is 12. Yeah, so that's in the week 13 folder. Week 13. Yeah. Okay, so again, if you can remember that dimension 12, you can then work out the size. Firstly, you need to know the scale. So the scale is here 1 to 50. So I'll start with the circle. I'll do the maths as I go. So I'm going to, here I'm using, if you're not sure, centre radius to draw my circle. I'm going to click to give the centre point, and then I need to work out my radius. So again, I said it was 12 mil at 1 to 50. So 12 times 50 is 600. 600 divided by 2 to give us the radius is 300. And if you're wondering, you do need to get used to doing maths like that in your head when you're working with things at different scales. That's standard practice. So again, here 300 is my radius. Enter, and you can see there the circle is pretty close to what I drew previously, so that gives us a good indication that the size is right. So that's the first thing. And maybe if you're not sure about that process I just used to work this out, you could even just remember that the size of the circle at 1 to 50 would be 300. So at 1 to 100 it would be 600. Okay, so I draw my circle. Next trick is to draw a line starting from the centre. So here you can see I'm not snapping, there's no object snaps coming up because I turned object snap off before. So I'll click to turn that on again down the bottom, the object snap button that hopefully you're used to already. F3 on the keyboard does the same thing. And so now you can see it's snapping to the centre of the circle And then this is the really tricky part that you probably all should have a look at. When you're drawing from the centre at 45 degrees, can you see how you can get this tangent point? Right, so there, if you go at 45 degrees either up and to the left or up and to the right, it doesn't matter which way, you can snap to the edge of the circle. So that's the first step. Then from there, you can go 45 degrees in the opposite direction. So if you've tried to do this before, this would probably be fairly clear, but if you haven't tried it, it's something you probably need to attempt first, and then it'll probably be clearer why that first line's so important. So I'll do it again, just so it's clear. So I'll draw a line again from the centre of the circle up and to the left at 45 degrees until I get to the edge. And now I can go 45 degrees the other way to get the other part of the arrow. Might seem like a little thing, but trust me, that will help everyone who needs to make a symbol like this. So I don't need the lines inside the circle anymore. I'm going to delete those, and I'm just left with the lines that I need. I can just fill it to join those together. I'll check that my radius is 0. So I can just join these two together with fillet. And that's it. That's going to be the basis for every referencing symbol that you'll ever need. It might seem like a simple thing, but extremely useful. And so I'll copy that to one side. Just show you a few variations on it.
I don't understand why. I want to do the degree.
Yeah. So you just click on the auto, the follow symbol, the arrow next to it, this one, the left, that one. Yeah. Click on the arrow, and down. Yeah, and then that's okay. You've got the right option. So turn it back forward. Yeah. That's it. Click on that again. Yeah. That's it. And then go draw a line. Yeah. From the centre. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Up and to the left. Yeah. That's it. Push it. Click it. Sorry? No, you just need to be drawing a line.
I know, but maybe I need to turn some sort of like object snap on.
Yeah, object snap needs to be
But
on.
I don't know which is the object snap because they are all different from the logo.
No, the same. It'll be the same symbol though. It's the
I
rectangle.
know your symbol, mine is not symbol, mine is indicating the
Oh, you've got text.
Okay.
It's O snap. O snap.
I did guess that.
Yeah.
But it
You need to be drawing a line as well. You're not drawing a line. Click on the line button, and then it'll work. You need to be drawing a line. It won't work until you do that. Yep, there we go. That's good. Click on the line button. No, the line button. No, you click on the line button. Line. The line button. The normal line. There we go. Now it's working. Okay, so then once you've got that basic setup, you can draw a line again from the centre maybe, or from either of the sides. And then just bring that out. And if you fill it one end and extend the other end, that gives you a simple section symbol. So I'm going to copy that now. And you probably, I mean, you could always just try this afterwards. You probably don't need to do this at the same time as me, because once you see what they look like, they're fairly easy to draw. So you can see now that I've got the lines down below the same, but I'm going to delete that horizontal line. And then I'm going to select the two angled lines and use mirror and just draw a mirror line across. So that gives me a simple elevation symbol. Now you can do lots of variations even on this, so maybe I could even have one more that is just the original lines. So those are the basic symbols, and then, but I won't spend too long on those because they're just lines and circles, and so once you've got those, then the part that's really tricky is the text, because the text that you've been doing up until now has all been scaling. In other words, it scales with the scale of your views. But for a symbol like this, you don't want that sort of text. If you try to use scaling text, it's just not going to work very well. In other words, if you use the annotation option, it's not going to do what you want. So I'm going to make a new text style. So I'm going to the text style option, and I'm going to make a new style, clicking the new button. I'm going to call it ref for reference. Click OK. And I'm going to use a slightly better font than Roman S. I'm going to use Roman D. Arial actually works pretty well for references, but as well. But Roman D is okay as well. So Roman D just means Roman duplex, so it's a double line font. And I'm going to then set a height for this, which I need to work out based on the scale. So I want my text to be 2.5 mil high, and scale is 1 to 50. So 2.5 times 50 is 125. So that's the height. And here, really important that you don't tick annotative. Okay, so that's it. Apply, close, and I will then make single line text. And I'm going to click start point I'll turn object snap off and just click near the line there. Make sure I press enter, and it asks for the rotation, and then you can see there that the text height is about right. And I'll make the reference there 1, start with, fine, enter, and I'll put in the sheet reference on the next line. So that's going to be, let's say A101 or something. Enter, enter again to finish. Now, they're not in line. It's not a problem because I can select this text separately and move it by eye. That's okay. Same with this one. Right, and that's what single line text does for you. You can move those as separate text objects. And we can see that maybe the height there is a little bit too big just because it's got a bit more text than you might have in some cases. So maybe I'll just try, if it's only a small project, then maybe A-01. No, let's try something A01. Might be all we need. If it's a longer sheet number, then you might need to use a smaller font. But here I think that's okay. So that's how you'd reference a section. Maybe I'll bring this text here up a little bit as well, just to make it a bit clearer. So elevations can be done the same way. So if this was an elevation reference, it would look almost identical. The only difference would be just a slight thing. Turn object snap back on. You wouldn't have the line sticking out. But otherwise, an elevation and a section reference will look identical if they're only referencing one thing. So it's not a bad idea, though, to do some copies of these for different directions. So if it's vertical, you want the text to stay the same direction, but the arrow obviously needs to rotate. So I can rotate the lines around that centre point 90 degrees, but of course now the line going through the circle isn't right, and that can just be trimmed, and then a new line across to separate the text. So then, yeah, so that's a nice thing to have ready to go, and then the elevations would be the same if they're, again, just a single reference. Okay, so that's easy. But then if you have a reference like this, where you have several elevations on the one reference, now it can be a problem. You've got to think about it if you have lots of sheets, but that's why it's good if you can keep all of these, if they're referenced from the one symbol, try to keep all those elevations on one sheet, and then it makes your referencing easier, as well as making it easier for other people to read. So I'm just going to copy the sheet reference over, but then I'm going to centre that a bit better. So that's in the middle. So sheet reference there is going to be for all of the elevations. And just make it a little bit neater. Now you can justify this if you want to centre it perfectly, but moving it around is okay as well. So if you have a sheet reference in the centre, then the view references conventionally go around the outside like this. I'm just moving these around. Now, some people do them to one side of the arrow, some people do them right above the arrow. It's probably clearer if you do them above the arrow, like that. But the idea here is it's always clarity, so whatever's clearer. Okay, so this could be separated a bit more. Okay, so this will be 2. So on. The order doesn't need to go clockwise. The order's up to you, and depends on your sheet layout as well. There we are. So 3. Sorry, what am I doing? Could have 3 over there actually, but probably makes more sense if it is at the bottom, and then 4 can be over here. Okay, so that's a pretty common method used to reference internal elevations. So for interiors drawings, they're really important. And then on the page, you of course need a reference or something for those references to relate to. So if we go back now onto one of these sheets, doesn't really matter which one. So now just to make sure everything's clear, I'm going to draw a reference or a symbol that's the same size on the page. So there you can see there's one of my symbols. We know the size of that in the viewport at 1 to 50. But thinking back, when I drew the circle, I did it 300 because that was the size at 1 to 50. But on the page, it would be the very original size, which was 12. So if I just click now and type in, well, not 12, but 6, because 12 was the diameter, 6 is the radius, then I know it's going to be exactly the same size as the circle I drew in here. It was 300. Okay, so now I can simply draw a line across with a snap-on, And if I want to, I can even draw text with the same text style, which was ref. That's okay. So I'll just use that. Click my start point, rotation angle, and then well, just type the text. So it's ground floor plan, I suppose. Oops. Enter twice, and we've got a problem. Okay, so the text there is way too big, and it's because of my height. I forgot that it wasn't annotated, so it's my fault. Over here you can see it's 125. Right, and so that's because it's, again, got that annotative option turned off. So you want to be really brave and guess the height that text should be. 125 is the height multiplied by 50. So 125 divided by 50, 2.5. Okay, so that's the height my text should have been. Okay, so that's if I want the same height. On your sheet, you can sometimes make the height a little bit more, so 3.5 for your titles, for your drawing names might be better. Okay, so delete that one. And a good trick, once you've drawn some single line text, it's often easier to copy it and then modify the copy. So here I've copied that text because it was the right height. Now I can simply modify it by double clicking. Got it? And even if I need text that's a different height, so okay, so there the 1 is a bit big because I've made that 3.5, but I can easily now change that to 2.5 if I want the same look as I've got on my pages. Again, you don't have to do that, and there's a reason. The text is often bigger on the page, on the sheet reference in other words, and that's because, finally, just to finish up, the referencing when you go the other way, looking at one, so here we go. So you've got here some sheet references, and well, you can see these do mostly include the view and the sheet reference, but you don't have to. So here we go. This is a typical one where you don't have to. So you've got their drawing symbol, which has just the number and the view name. So you don't have to put the sheet name in every case. So you don't have to have this. So instead of having it like that, you can simply have, oh no, you don't need to follow all the steps, you just need to see the different examples. And I think that's a common problem. If you're trying to follow everything step by step, it's hard to get the understanding that you need to do the work. So again, as long as you've seen this symbol, that it doesn't on the sheet need that line going across, and it can just have the number, that makes it much easier. So then you only have the reference going one way. It goes from here, number 1, to the sheet. You go to the sheet, find number 1, and you don't have to worry about any other numbers in this reference for the ground floor or the view that you're referring to. And so again, I think people create a lot of work for themselves by not understanding that and trying to do too much referencing, and again, just trying to follow by rote instead of just actually first trying to understand the system. So, so again, make sure you do have a good look through the examples here and understand what they all mean. And And again, just realise that when you're doing your text, you'll have to get the scale established first. And again, maybe try to make those referencing symbols at the same time as doing some of your other notes. And that's the last major thing. So again, I'll just say it one last time, the annotation is the key. It's something that a lot of people, until you have done a few of these drawings, think is just something you do at the end and maybe focus on all the line drawing. But then when you've done a project like this and when you get hired to do construction drawings for a living, you'll realise that the notes are as important, and probably in many cases more important, than the lines and the other things that you drawing for your buildings and your building elements. So it's really important that you sit down, make sure you can do some notes, get the text to be the right size, and just as important, the referencing. So again, spend some time on that over the next week or so, and make sure you've got it really under control, because that is critical. And I'll just say it one last time, the lines and the other things you spend all the time on are half of it. The notes and everything else that I've been looking at really throughout, but especially today, just as important. And again, hopefully you're starting to appreciate that once you get to the end of a project like this, and then the notes are really going to finish it off. So I'll let you spend some time on that, but make sure you let me know if you can't get the notes or the referencing working, because you'll have to get that done, or at least start it today.